Donald Trump has doubled down on his plans for the United States to, in his words, take over Gaza after talks with Jordan's King Abdullah at the White House. Trump repeated his claims that the 2 million Palestinians living in Gaza would voluntarily leave for Jordan and Egypt. Jordan's King Abdullah skirted the issue when asked by reporters about Trump's comments, saying it would be discussed with regional leaders. Egypt, meanwhile, has announced its own reconstruction plan.
Thank you very much.
Though his plan faces a host of obstacles, Donald Trump is pressing ahead. The president insisting that the U.S. would take over Gaza and resettle the roughly 2 million people living there.
Mr. President, take it under what authority? It is sovereign territory.
Under the U.S. authority. We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it. And we're going to run it very properly, and eventually we'll have economic development at a very large scale, maybe the largest scale on that site. And we'll have lots of good things built there, including hotels and office buildings and housing and other things.
Trump was hosting Jordan's King Abdullah at the White House. The U.S. president's plan envisions Jordan and Egypt taking in evacuees from Gaza. King Abdullah has said he opposes any attempt to annex land and displace Palestinians.
King Abdullah, what do you think about the U.S. taking over the Gaza Strip? Do you want to see the U.S. own the Gaza Strip?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, the president is looking at Egypt coming to present their plan. As I said, we will be in Saudi Arabia to discuss how we can work with the president and with the United States. So I think let's wait until the Egyptians can come and present it to the president and not get ahead of ourselves.
International observers have been sharply critical of Trump's plan. Top UN rights officials say it could amount to ethnic cleansing. Egypt says it will offer a proposal to rebuild Gaza while ensuring Palestinians remain on their land. Meanwhile, Trump's proposal continues to cast a shadow over a fragile ceasefire agreement in the Gaza war. The truce could be on the verge of breaking. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel would resume intense fighting at noon on Saturday if Hamas does not release hostages it captured during the October 7th attacks.
For more, I'm joined by journalist Karim El-Gawari in Cairo. Karim, how seriously are people in the region taking Trump's proposal?
Well, people in the region are used to talk about transferring Palestinians to Gaza, to Egypt and to Jordan. This talk is coming since decades by the extreme Israeli right wing. What's shocking for them, of course, is that the U.S. president is now endorsing this kind of displacement scheme that is not only seen by people here in the region, but also described by the UN as possible ethnic cleansing if it's going to happen. The meeting yesterday with King Abdullah was quite bizarre. Trump was doubling down on his idea of displacing Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, while Abdullah was sitting there trying not to commit to anything. But at the end, after this meeting, we had a clear rejection of this idea also by the Jordanian side, through statements also by the foreign minister of Jordan, but also a statement by Egypt rejecting it, and also by Saudi Arabia saying we need a two-state solution. Now the Arab states are saying they have to coordinate between each other. Most important, I think, Saudi Arabia, because it's the most powerful state towards Trump to present their own plan.
Meanwhile, Karim, Egypt has now announced a plan to reconstruct Gaza, as we mentioned at the top. What more do we know about it?
Well, very little, except that the Egyptians are saying it would be the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip without the displacement of the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. Of course, that is an Egyptian position since 77 years of the Palestinian question. Egypt always rejected any kind of displacement scheme. In an Egyptian statement, they were saying they were eager to work together with Trump for a comprehensive and just peace That is normally the Egyptian code word for a two-state solution. So other than that, there are very little details known, except maybe that the idea is to form some kind of technocratic rule over the Gaza Strip by Palestinians. But again, plans are not clear. I think we will see in the next days and weeks a very intensive coordination between Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Jordan to work out this plan.
Karim, just very quickly, you've covered the region for decades. I'm curious, what's your sense? Will the pressure Trump can reasonably exert on leaders there be enough to produce the outcome he's looking for?
Well, I don't think he will manage to force them into be part of implementing this part. That's, I think, is impossible for the governments in Jordan and Egypt. It would also be some kind of political internal suicide, because public opinion very strongly is against it. But it might be that he will get some more engagement by the Arab states for like a post-war administration in the Gaza Strip, if there is a post-war, because the newest indications is, of course, that the war might continue next Saturday.
Karim, less than half a minute, but I do want to ask you, we've heard in the report the ceasefire is very fragile at the moment. Where do things stand as of now?
Well, for now, it looks like the war is going to continue, because there is not much to mediate right now, also for the Qataris and the Egyptians to jump in. But the question will be, what will this achieve? Will this achieve anything? Will it achieve the stated goal of Netanyahu of destroying Hamas? This turned out an illusion in the last 15 months of the war, and I think it will remain to do so.
That is Karim El-Gawari, a journalist reporting from Cairo. As always, many thanks, Karim.
You're welcome.
Let's pick up on the state of the ceasefire with DW correspondent Emily Gordine in Jerusalem. Emily, what's the latest?
So actually, we just heard that Trump's hostage envoy, Adam Boehler, just told CNN that another American hostage is set to be released today. It's not clear what the name of this hostage is, but this comes at a time when the ceasefire deal in and of itself has been hanging by a thread, really. And there's a lot to unpack here, so bear with me. The fact that it's hanging by a thread started on Monday when Hamas announced that it would delay indefinitely the release of 3 hostages that were scheduled to be released this Saturday. They alleged Israel of violating the ceasefire agreement in delaying the return of Palestinians to northern Gaza, in targeting Palestinians with airstrikes and gunfire across various areas of the Strip. And of failing to facilitate the entry of humanitarian aid getting into Gaza, as had been agreed to according to this deal. Now, President Donald Trump responded to Hamas's announcement and saying that, as far as he's concerned, the ceasefire should end if Hamas did not release all of the hostages by Saturday at noon. Now, that goes far beyond what had been agreed in the first phase of this ceasefire deal. And it also led to 3 contradicting statements by the Prime Minister's office in Israel. The first one saying that Israel would not move forward with the deal if all 9 living hostages that were meant to be released as part of the first phase of the ceasefire deal weren't released in the coming days. It also accused Hamas of violating the ceasefire agreement and said that the negotiations for the second phase of the deal were going to be delayed. They are already delayed because Netanyahu cancelled a flight by his negotiation team last week to Doha. Then, after that first statement, we received a second statement, this time a filmed statement by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, in which he said that Israel would resume the war if Hamas didn't release the hostages by Saturday noon. He didn't specify how many hostages he meant there. And then after that, we received a third statement that said that all 79 hostages should be released by Saturday noon, in line with what Donald Trump had said just yesterday. So quite a bit of confusion there on the Israeli side as to what they want. It's too early really to predict what will happen. And Hamas, for its part, has come out saying that it is committed to the deal, But what that will mean precisely, that's something we will find out over the coming days, really.
DW correspondent Emily Gordine, on top of what is clearly a dynamic situation there in Israel. Many thanks, Emily. Trump's suggestion that Gazans could be relocated under his takeover plan isn't just an unpopular idea in Jordan. It's also being rejected flat out by Gazans themselves.
The hope of returning home had kept Ahmed Badwan going through the months of war and displacement in southern Gaza. They got back, but their home was gone.
The day before yesterday, I saw my house destroyed. No home, no life, nothing. I brought a tarp and nails, but I don't know where to set up a tent for my daughter and me.
Vast areas of this once lively neighborhood in northern Gaza City have been destroyed by Israel's airstrikes and ground invasion.
I don't even know how to secure my children's survival in the upcoming period. I can't even think further than that. There's no work, no housing, nothing. I don't know what reality is or what awaits us.
Adding to the uncertainty are the statements made by US President Donald Trump, saying he plans to take over Gaza and resettle its population of 2.3 million people elsewhere.
This land is precious and dear. This land is precious and beautiful. How can I leave? We bled for this land. We suffered and lived here. I don't know how we would leave. But with all this destruction, everything pushes you to go.
We won't even bother answering Trump's statements, and we will not go to Jordan or Egypt. We will remain steadfast here, God willing.
Mohammed Asawi also says leaving Gaza is not an option. That's despite losing his livelihood and everything he'd worked years for. His car, repair shop and home have been reduced to rubble.
I'll tell my son to build our house well, because he will be the one to live in it, not me. Maybe my children will see our home rebuilt one day, but I will not. I may never see Gaza restored to what it was.
Despite the lack of running water or electricity, he says he has nowhere else to go. And like others, he fears that if he were forced to leave Gaza, he may never be allowed to return.